Sup, it's Penuel the Black Pen coming to you from St. Petersburg in Russia. I've got all these topics that I normally note down on my phone, and I almost never get to them, and it makes me so sad. And I think I need to find some unique way, maybe once a week, with all the things that I've noted down, to just make time to film and then send it to the guys that I know that can edit and hopefully add some of the edits, because I know in this video I'm going to mention some really dope things that I hope in time, if not myself learning how to edit, I'll be able to send to an editing team, and they can add some of the graphics of some of the things I speak about and some sound bites and some clips, because I think that would be so dope. I mean, at some point you have to get tired of just seeing my face and want to see something else. Recording this from my hotel room, I didn't bring a stand, so I did like a makeshift stand that I'm on here. What are some of the things I want to speak about? Let me see. Let me speak about this one. Build a nation starts with a small piece. As South Africans, and anywhere in the world really, and I've said this before, the whole concept of nations is fancy apartheid. You know, apartheid in South Africa was a system where they separated South Africa into smaller pieces. Unfortunately, it was a white Afrikaans regime that forcefully removed black people off their land and then put them into these Bantustans. But essentially, nations are just cut up pieces of land of segregation. And most of us have essentially just kind of accepted that separate nations are a thing. You give people a flag, you give people a national anthem. All of a sudden, you've got sports teams that represent your country, and you're like, I stand for this country and I'm a patriot of this country as well. When we look at the South African situation and all the people that are complaining and are miserable, we want national change, essentially. We want the whole country, national government to be different. I mean, being in a country like Russia, looking at how it's run, a couple of weeks ago I was in China, before that I was in South Korea, looking at how there are better run countries out there, and China and Russia in particular being more communist leaning. What I mean by that is that the government owns everything and that private then falls underneath them, versus South Africa, where it almost seems like the private business guys get to control our politicians who are underneath them. We had conversations with some of the media people and some of the South Africans who work in government that I met while I was here at the Russia-Africa Economic and Humanitarian Forum and Summit. And a lot of them were speaking about a change in government, a change in leadership, how things need to change, the crime, the lack of service delivery, etc. And I was saying, why is it that we can't define what utopia looks like for us? Whether you think it's Russia, whether you think it's China, whether you think it's Dubai, whether you think it's the United States of America, whether you think it's anywhere, be like, this is the perfect place for me, or as close to perfect as possible. And then go back to South Africa and carve a small piece of land and create your utopia there. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I love mentioning Orania as an example. It's one of the reasons I think that a lot of people, especially privileged white people, want to create an independent Western Cape. Find 10, 100, 1,000 hectares if you can. Fence them off and then be like, we will run this place like Russia, Putin's Russia is run. We will run this place like Xi Jinping's China is run. We will run this place the way Joe Biden and the Republicans, Democrats run America. We will run this place like the United Kingdom or England. We will run this place like whatever you believe is the way, the Middle East, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. We will carve 1,000 hectares of land, we will fence them, and we will enact Islamic law as an example. So no alcohol is allowed, people have to pray, there are mosques everywhere, the women have to be covered in the clothing that they wear, the guys have to follow certain prescriptions, the kids have to go to madrasa, everyone has to speak Arabic, everyone has to learn the Quran. Things like homosexuality are not allowed there. And you have the space where you're like, this is our utopia. And within South Africa, you can invite other people who share your ideologies to come into that space. And you tell them, these are our prescriptions, these are our terms and conditions, and you have to abide by this and make people pay. I mean, you look at situations like Stain City, Waterfall City, where there's an estate, and in that estate, there's a body corporate, and that body corporate has to abide by certain principles. And you can decide culturally, like Orania, that unfortunately this is a religious space, this is a cultural space, therefore we do not allow certain things. The Constitution will protect you in terms of culture, in terms of religion, etc. So I think some of us who are frustrated with national government and who feel like we're not winning and who feel like the ANC has taken over the country and we almost can't get rid of them, why not look for small spaces and look at the smallest denomination? It's your home. You can start with your home and be like, I will run my home the way China's run. I will ensure that my kids become sweatshop laborers. I will invoke a rule of law. My kids will study like in South Korea from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. If you're an Islamic state, the woman will submit. Certain things are not allowed in my house. You can choose to be racist, xenophobic, homophobic, transphobic, but it's within your house and you have these rules and they set. And then enlarge it from your home and your family to maybe your community, or find a like-minded community, or find a piece of land and begin building the space where you're like, this is the utopia I strive for. I find a lot of people in South Africa move for money's sake. So a person will leave KZN and move to Cape Town or the Western Cape for a job. A person will leave Gauteng and move to the Eastern Cape for a job. We move for money, but we don't move for ideologies and values. And I think if you were to move for ideologies and values, you would find your own people. And if your own people are organized the way you believe, they should be able to strive. And don't worry about an economy. You can always build your economy from outside. You look at the example of the Stellenbosch Mafia in Stellenbosch. You look at Dubai. You look at even the United Kingdom as an example. A lot of these spaces, a lot of these countries, they build their wealth from investing in economies outside or selling to people outside. China, as an example. You look in South Africa, where a lot of the Indian, Arab, Muslim traders, the Chinese traders, they set up shop, but a lot of their customers are black South African people. But then they take that money and they build up their neighborhoods wherever their neighborhoods are. So even after you've created your 100, 1,000 hectare space of your ideology, of your vision, of your utopia, you don't have to worry about building an economy there. You might be like, yeah, but we don't have mines and farms. You can always go and invest in mines and farms elsewhere and show people that we can create the vision that we want here. I think if we can get more people, especially wise old people, collaborating with young, energetic, visionary people, collaborate and say, we will travel the world. We will build theoretically, conceptually, this idea of the perfect utopia that we want. And then from there, we will go and find a piece of land and then we will fence it. So unlike South Africa, you will have strong borders, have security. Of course, these things will need money, but if you have a strong vision, you'll find a way. If you don't have the money, you can follow our boys in the United Kingdom. You can follow America. It's not allowed, of course, but there are things happening in the world constantly. You can go and colonize other nations. You can go and enslave certain people or your own people. It is up to you. I'm not endorsing this. I'm trying to explain that these are the solutions that are out there. Because if you want to idolize the United States of America, you have to remember that it was built off colonization by the Spaniards, the Spanish, and it was built off slavery, African slaves. It's not like America just got great out of thin air. If you're going to idolize China, please understand its history. If you're going to idolize the Soviet Union, Russia, and the like, where I am, please understand the history. But if obviously you can raise the money in better ways, in better means, if you can sell the idea to people that believe in it, you can create these neighborhoods, these spaces of your ideology, and tell people only if you identify and commit to our ideology and our vision can you come in here. Otherwise, forget about it. And I think that's like a really cool potential solution in South Africa, because you can imagine if you build something great and people love it. If, for example, Orania, outside of it being white Afrikaans, if it was a multicultural village where everyone cleans after themselves, where the economy is decent, where there's no crime, where there are decent schools, you can imagine how many other people want to move there, number one, or say, please come and help us build something similar. And in that way, you get to then colonize the country reverse without necessarily taking over government. I use this example of Dr. Chris van der Merwe, the founder of Curo, Yanni Mouton and the guys at PSG who invested in Curo and grew it into the schooling brand that it is today. At some point, I stand to be corrected, at some point, the Gauteng Department of Education ran out of space to place children for school. And at the time, the MEC for Education was Panyaza Lesufi. He is currently the Premier of Gauteng now. But as MEC of Education, he went to go and approach Curo as a private schooling brand to please take some of the students they could not place. Again, I stand to be corrected if the story is incorrect. But he went to go and ask Curo When you've built something of value, even other people from outside will come and ask you to help. We might see it if ever national health insurance is implemented in South Africa, with our government asking Discovery, asking Momentum, asking all of these other brands, Mediclinic, to please assist them. Because when you've built something of value, people gravitate towards it. And I think if we can build spaces, residential, home, school, etc., that are crime-free or have low crime, where the people, they have jobs, where the families get along and are organized, a lot of people idolize that and will want something like that. And I think it's something we need to consider. I'll mention that one. Is there another one I want to mention? I'm going to respond to a comment on one of the videos I made. I think then I'll stop it there. Zuluforum. Ooh, should I talk about this? Before I answer the comment. When I sat down with Ernst van Zyl, one of the young leaders at Afriforum, so many people, and it wasn't the first time, was saying, but why can't we start our own thing? Why can't we build something? A lot of people are like, Pen, start something similar. Afriforum prioritizes the interests of Afrikaners and other minority groups. Those are minority groups, and it's fair and it's fine. I donate 100 Rand a month to Afriforum, and it's because of some of the tangible work they do. Service delivery, monitoring, patrolling the borders, holding government to account when government falls short. But I can understand that Afriforum doesn't represent me. It represents Afrikaners and other minority groups. I just support some of the work they do. There are going to be times, of course, where what Afriforum fights for clashes with what I believe in. Fighting to bring back the apartheid flag, so-called. I don't believe in that type of stuff. And I actually saw a comment. I sat with the guys at the Load Shed podcast in Durban, Joshua Dukwa and Uchaka Baungubani, I believe. I stand to be corrected. The gents, please go check out the Load Shed podcast. I'm going to drop a link at the bottom. Please go check it out and support the guys. They're relatively new. They're almost on 400 subscribers. I'm hoping that with some of the work I'm going to do with them, maybe shoot another 1-2 videos, I can try help boost their subscribers, try have cool conversations and get you to see other really cool, exciting young South Africans, because these are young gents. One of the comments was saying something like, you can never find a great political party. What you need to do is you need to vote for a political party that focuses on the things that you prioritize and need, and where you can stomach some of the bad things. So you can be like, look, this party is corrupt. This party is rubbish. But in terms of my priorities, could be jobs, could be crime. They can sort this out. I can live with things like, let's say, racism. I can live with things with a little bit of corruption here and there. So I think that's important. And I think that's what Afriforum represents to me. I believe 80% of the work Afriforum does is absolutely amazing. I disagree with 20%, and I can live with that. My conscience can live with that. When people spoke about this, when they speak about Afriforum, black people, they speak about, we must create our own black forum. We must create our own Bantu forum, etc. Afriforum, for people to understand, yes, arguably it's a white Afrikaans group, but that's not how they sell it, because the constitution wouldn't allow them. You can't have a whites-only non-profit organization. It would be shut down. It's the reason why Andile Mngxitama and BLF, Black First, Land First, the political party, was eventually removed, because they were like, you can't keep out whites and coloreds and Indians from joining your political party. It's unconstitutional. But what the guys at Afriforum got right is they hid behind culture. They said we represent Afrikaner people, of which a bulk of them is white, but a bulk of them is also colored. But they understand that the majority white will be supporting their initiatives, etc. And I've said to black people, you shouldn't or you cannot start a black forum. It's racist, it's unconstitutional. And understand that Afriforum is cultural. So you would need to start something like a Zuluforum, Xhosa Forum. I mean, there was a Xhosa Nostra at some point, which I thought was going to grow into something special. You can grow a Ndebele group of sorts. I mean, you had the Vendor Building Society, VBS Bank, which unfortunately has been destroyed because of funniness, corruption, weird political connections, and potential sabotage. Vendor Building Society. So the idea, if you were to look at KZN, KwaZulu, with the Zulus who are the majority people in South Africa, if you could build a cultural group called Zuluforum, I think that would be so dope. And you tell people, look, we represent Zulus and the majority of South Africans. Because Afriforum represents Afrikaners and minorities. So you can say Zulus and the majority. And it can be a white person, it can be a colored person, it can be an Indian, it can be Chinese. If someone says, I maybe identify as Zulu, or I identify with your cause of fighting for Zulus and majorities, I'd like to join and fund you. 100 Rand, 50 Rand, 1,000 Rand a month, it doesn't matter. And then you take that money and you build whatever the majority claim that they want. It could be buying local. So you take that money and you force government to increase import tariffs. You force government, you fight them, just like Afriforum. You take them to court and you say, but you guys are not investing in this space. You guys are not doing that. And if you look at what Afriforum has done, working with Solidarity, a trade union, Solidariteit, they've built Soltech, a skills development institution. You take that money, boy, and you build your own institutions. You can then use that money to fight for certain languages and say, look, yes, there's English in South Africa, yes, there's Afrikaans in some institutions, but we would like isiZulu or Nguni, the majority, Zulu, Xhosa, Swati, Ndebele. We demand Zulu. We demand on TV that when the president is speaking, when whoever, if they're not going to be speaking in a Nguni language because we are the majority, we demand subtitles. And that's the power that you can put together. And people are like, but drive this. I'm like, I'm a penalist. I'm fighting for penalists, which are good people. I have my own ideologies which go beyond culture, which go beyond race, which go beyond nationality. But this is an idea worth discussing. Just like the one I said before about starting with a small piece and then building your utopia. You can, as a Black Zulu woman, set up this thing, attract people, make sure that it's constitutionally sound, and allow whoever believes in your vision and your cause and your mandate to join and help you scale what you're building. It's worth a conversation. I think if I had more time, more capacity, I would love to travel around South Africa and plant some of these seeds. It doesn't have to be Zulu. It can be the Bedis. It can be the Swatis. It can be the Tswanas. There could be Sotho people in the Free State who are looking to set up something so that Sothos can run the entire Free State and then remove the border with Lesotho and maybe build Lesotho and the Free State and combine them and build a bigger Sotho tribe and nation, which can maybe even compete with the Zulus and say the Sothos are organized. You look at what's happened with Royal Bafokeng, who have the platinum mines in the Northwest, and what they've been able to do with the money that they have and the wealth that they've created. If they could have like a crowdfunding platforms for people that fall under the Bafokeng royal tribe and clan, you can then use that money to create even more. Build your type of schools, create factories, create farms. I mean, with something like a Zuluforum, you could use some of that money to maybe even fight the king of the Zulus to dismantle the Ingonyama Trust and say, we want you to privatize this land. We fought it in court. We fought it with the constitution. And now that we've dismantled it, we want to buy all this land or a big chunk of this land because we have the money and the support. And we maybe have 1 million Zulu members, whether they are Black Zulu or they are Zulu by identification. Could be white, Chinese, who are like, we identify with the Zulu cause, who are contributing. And you have this board that acts on behalf of the mandate. And they say, we will take Afriforum, I think, raises 45 million Rand a month. That Zuluforum could be raising 100 million a month. And you take that 100 million and you buy up tracts of land of this Ngonyama Trust you've dismantled, and you end up building a real Zulu kingdom, an empire, and you have schools that are run in isiZulu or Nguni languages like Xhosa and Swati. You build universities, you have workspaces, you have an economy, whatever you want. It just requires strong, clear, visionary leadership, and you must ensure that it's sound, and if it's not sound, you must be willing to fight for whatever you believe in. Just an idea worth thinking about. These are some of the notes, like I said, that I write that, like, I never get a chance to kind of speak about. I want to go back to this comment. So I made a video, and the video's title was, "The land was not stolen, you were conquered." I'll add a link to that video as well. The land was not stolen, you were conquered. It upsets a lot of Black people when I tell them, your land wasn't stolen. Something that's stolen, you're not there, it's nighttime, someone creeps in, they steal, and you're like, stolen. And once something is stolen, you go to an authority figure, the police, the courts, the government, the United Nations, the ICC. You go and you say, look, these people stole our stuff. You isolate the stuff, you prove the theft, and then if the authority figures are just, they make sure that you get justice. You get your land, car, whatever it is that was stolen, and you get maybe some other further compensation in terms of damages. The land was not stolen, you were conquered, because back in the day, conquest was a thing, and it was legal. And to this day, I mean, you look at the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now, is that legal? If Russia ends up taking over a part of Ukraine successfully, will that be theft while all of us were watching? Or would it be conquest? You know what I mean? So that becomes a conversation. The land was not stolen, you were conquered. Jesse Clark wrote a comment here, and Jesse says, interesting pen and valid points. May I ask what your solution would be? Would it then be black versus white? Or if not, who would be considered the enemy? Now, this question comes from me saying, if black people want the land back in South Africa, they must be willing to conquer white people. You can do that, go orthodox, go and fight. I mean, in Niger, I think the president has been overthrown through a coup. It's not the first coup in Africa. There have been a lot of coups in the last couple of years. You can go and overthrow, like the ANC, PAC, IFP, and other struggle groups. You can go and say, we will fight the apartheid government, and you'll be labeled a terrorist and whatever. But you will say, we will conquer white people back. We will be called names, whatever, but we will go and campaign to the rest of the world that we want our land back. And since our government in South Africa, since the courts in South Africa with the Constitutional Court, since the UN and other bodies are not helping us get our land back, we decided, like apartheid struggle groups before, we decided to fight our current black government and the people in charge to say, we will get the land back. And it's either you help us get this land back, or you also become a problem. That's the one part. The other part is you can conquer intelligently. I mean, you can fundraise, like I said, and buy the land. You can maybe, something that I've said that has triggered a lot of people, you can go and, I'll speak as a black gent, I can go and find the daughters of the biggest white landowners in South Africa who got their land through apartheid, British colonization, and woo them. Get them to fall in love with the boy. Hey, what's up, Mariki? How you doing, honey? You know, fall in love with the boy. Get a little Sunette, get a little Susan, you know, speak your English, speak your Afrikaans. Hoe gaan het my se kind? Say, all right, my name is Penwell, whatever. Die swart pen, you better know. You meet these girls and you make them fall in love with you because it's a strategy, right? It's a strategy it's an old strategy. It sounds disgusting and dirty, but it's a strategy of colonization, of conquest. You can either do it aggressively, like I said, or you can meet some of these girls whose father is Johann Rupert, whose father is Nicky Oppenheimer, whose father is whoever. You make them fall in love with you. Shout out to the black gent who's dating Bill Gates' daughter. We see you, homie. We see you, homie. Go get us those reparations, homie. You meet these girls, you fall in love with them, you marry them, you impregnate them, you have kids. Your kids, the descendants of black who were dispossessed, are going to be colored kids who are the descendants of conquerors, the white, and they will inherit this land that their grandfather has. You know, one of the arguments when I tweeted this, even though a lot of people found it controversial, they're like, oh, are you endorsing rape? I'm like, are you fucking mad? I'm speaking about mutually, you know, the girl likes me, I like her. It just so happens she comes from a well-off family. It happens, arranged marriages, even within black people. Someone was saying a lot of the Nigerian guys who are nicknamed, I don't even know if it's derogatory, who are nicknamed Jollof. Jollof is the spicy, or not spicy, it's this rice, this yummy Nigerian rice that is made, and it's also sold in South Africa. They are saying a lot of these Jollof brothers, that's what they're doing to South African girls. They meet them, fall in love with them, they send e-wallets, they get them pregnant. Their kids might be South African citizens or have a dual citizenship with Nigeria. All of a sudden, this guy could get citizenship because he's married to a South African girl. All of a sudden, whatever benefits you can get from the state, child grants, RDPs, this girl can get on your behalf as a visionary man. So that's another example. To go and meet privileged white people, you could be a man or woman, be like, I think it's called hypergamy, where women marry up. So a woman from a poor background will want to marry a guy that's better off. Black, white, it doesn't matter. And I'm saying one of the strategies of conquest is to go and say, I will marry up, but I specifically want to marry up a white person who is a beneficiary of colonization and apartheid, so that my children can get reparations in that way. And not just my children, myself, I will have access to this land that we were sort of dispossessed from. The question wasn't done. If land was conquered a while back, would the current owners, who had nothing to do with the conquering, not consider the oncoming conquerors the enemy? So your 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th generation white person in South Africa, your great-great-great-great-grandfather came and they got land. You obviously are going to be like, look, my forefathers worked really hard. They used to farm, they used to mine. They were honest, hardworking people. They were God-fearing, whatever the case may be. But black people will come and say, but you guys were beneficiaries of this act of forcefully removing black people of their land. You are beneficiary of British colonizers taking over land that belonged to my forefathers and my ancestors. And Jesse is asking, would those current landowners who are not conquerors, who are not there, who are not colonizers and part of the apartheid regime, they just happen to be born in that family, would they not see these black kids coming to conquer them as the enemy? In turn, would they then not only be defending what they consider as theirs? When would the conquering end? That last line, that last question, when would the conquering end? The reality to Jesse Clark and many people that would be interested is conquest never ends. It's a way of the world. It just morphs. You know, we speak about colonialism and we speak about neo-colonialism today with the Chinese who offer debt to Africa and hold collateral of the ports, the harbors, the airports, etc. It doesn't end. The land, I've said this before, land is a natural resource. Everyone can have it. It's free. Human beings came and constructed things like private land ownership. They created things like nations, like provinces, like towns, like cities, and they gave them names. You know, they peed on them like dogs or like other animals. And the person who is willing to fight, kill, colonize, psychologically dominate others gets to influence what happens on that land. Back in the day, it was obviously wars. Today, it could be someone who speaks well. It could be someone with a lot of money. It could be people that own social media, the internet, who are like, because we've got cell phone towers or we've got network here, we get to influence the minds. I think it's one of the reasons China doesn't want Google and Facebook products in China, because they know the psychological manipulation where ordinary Chinese people might end up bowing down to the Americans and end up maybe giving away some of their land and assets to the Americans because they've been convinced by Facebook, by Instagram, by YouTube, by Google products to be like, no, land is not important, you should do this, your land should be valued here. The Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party is like, we will dictate to you psychologically what is right and what's wrong. So there's so many different ways to that. But the conquering never ends. And yes, the people who are beneficiaries today will obviously see. I mean, it happens now when you hear Julius Malema and the EFF, when he was Julius Malema under the ANC Youth League, these people that are saying, we want the land back, land expropriation without compensation. You know, we want to get the land and we don't want to compensate you for it. The people who live on that land now are like, we were not there. So we need the government and the police to protect us. We have title deeds. Our families lived here. Of course, they'll see them as the enemy. That's why some of us who are not on either side need to find intelligent ways to see how we navigate this way. Because as a penalist again, I believe in good people and bad people. And I want good people to win. Whether you're a beneficiary of as part of the great Shaka Zulu tribe, whether you're a beneficiary of as part of the white apartheid regime, whether you're a beneficiary of, oh, I'm part of the Chinese Communist Party that benefited. Whatever benefit you have, you happen to be a light-skinned, big booty chick, and all the guys want you. Own your privilege, defend your privilege, try and do good with it. What that means is you could be a white Jan van der Merwe who inherited 5,000 hectares of land and you understand the situation in South Africa. And you'll say, look, I'm a good person. I understand the history. I understand the sensitivity. I will try and find some of the black people who claim they used to live on this land. If they can't prove that they own this land, if they can't get it back, land redistribution, land restitution, what I will do is I will upskill them and I will get them to maybe lease parts of the land or work parts of the land so that we can all benefit together. And depending on what relationships I build as Jan van der Merwe with the people that are here, who knows, maybe our kids will go to the same school, maybe my son will fall in love with one of the black daughters, maybe my daughter will fall in love with one of the black sons because I'm a good person. I am non-racial, I am non-whatever, I understand my privilege, I understand the issues, but I'm finding other good people and I'm trying to build with them. That is the kind of agenda that I'm trying to push. So that's my answer to Jesse. And I think I'll end it there. Yesterday we went on a really, really dope boat ride on the Naval River in St. Petersburg. If you ever get a chance, if you ever get a chance to visit Russia, if you ever get a chance to visit St. Petersburg, please try and go on a boat cruise on the Naval River, 74-kilometer river. Beautiful, well kept, well maintained. We had a great time. Shout out to the leadership at Rosatom, which is a Russian atomic, I think it's like a Russian state atomic company, but essentially they deal in nuclear medicine. I think they do weapons, and they do so many other innovations. They do mining of uranium as well. Rosatom, over 300,000 employees working in over 60 countries. It's a mammoth of a company. So they are the people that are hosting myself and a couple of us as well in South Africa who came through to the forum and the summit, and they took us on this boat ride, which was absolutely amazing. And shout out to Igor, man. Igor, he's not a tour guide. He's one of our hosts, but he did like a tour guide thing on the bus when we were traveling yesterday. And I wanted to give a shout out to, again, this you can maybe see on the internet, maybe go on YouTube or just check pictures online. Please check out the St. Nicholas Naval Cathedral, which was built over 40 years. I think there was an emperor before and then his brother. I don't know if the emperor was Nikolai. There's a statue there of Nikolai, the emperor. And then I think his brother, over 40 years. It's beautiful. And it's inspiring for people that love architecture when you speak of the pyramids, that we should be looking to build amazing structures like that today. 40 years, the St. Nicholas Naval Cathedral. And then there was something else that I saw. I think it's called the Bronze Horseman. I'll tell you now because I actually wanted to read what I saw on Wikipedia. The Bronze Horseman is an equestrian statue of Peter the Great. It's written Petro there and it's written Katarina. Peter, Petro. Equestrian statue of Peter the Great in the Senate Square in St. Petersburg, Russia. It was opened to the public on the 18th of August, 1782, commissioned by Catherine the Great, Katarina. It was created by the French sculptor Etienne Maurice Falconet. Etienne Maurice Falconet or Falconet. The name influenced an 1833 poem of the same name by Alexander Pushkin, which is widely considered one of the most significant works of Russian literature. The statue is now one of the symbols of St. Petersburg. I think that's pretty dope. Jeez, I'm running out of time. Let me see here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I've got 10 minutes to finish this video because we're meant to go on a sightseeing tour and I had so much to say to you. But I think I've covered almost everything. The Bronze Horseman, Naval River, St. Petersburg, and Rosatom. Thank you to Igor, thank you to Anna, one of our hosts, and thank you to Eva as well, who's been absolutely amazing. You know, even at times when we've struggled at the summit with issues, she comes through as this lioness when she speaks this Russian and, you know, she gets these people to move out the way. I think that was pretty dope and pretty boss. Shout out to the Russians, man. And one of the cool things is Russians are not just blonde, blue-eyed people. There are so many different nations in Russia, and it's something to learn. You know, outside of the conflict and your thoughts on Putin and the Soviet Union and Stalin, just to learn about other nations, other cultures. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the fights are just people at the top. And ordinary citizens are like you and I. They just want to win. They just want to be okay. They just want to be safe. So yeah, man. Unfortunately, I don't have a great view, but I'll just show you the outside of my hotel room here in St. Petersburg. That's the outside. It's not the greatest view, unfortunately, but just so you can see it. And then I want to show you something really, really cool. We're in summer now, and the sun rises at 4:30 in the morning. The weather's been pretty dope, low 20s generally. The sun rises at 4:30 in the morning. The sun sets between 9:30 and 10 p.m. So at like 9-10 p.m. at night, the sun is still out, which is wild for me, so wild. And I found it pretty cool. In closing, in closing for you, this is called the Matryoshka. It's an amazing Russian doll, Russian symbol for you. Let me actually read something quickly. The Matryoshka. Just in closing, I hope I'm not too late and they don't leave me behind. The Matryoshka dolls are a set of wooden dolls of decreasing size placed one inside the other. The name Matryoshka, mainly known as Little Matron, is a diminutive form of Matryoshka, in turn a diminutive of the Russian female first name Matryona. Matryoshka, matriarchy, you know, should ring a bell. Inventor was Vasily Zvyozdoshkin. Vasily Zvozdoshkin. Vasily Zvozdoshkin, who was the manufacturer, and Sergei Malyutin, who was the designer. Sergei Malyutin. Back in 1890, there was something cool I wanted to say here. I wanted to read the metaphor. Matryoshka is often seen as a symbol of the feminine side of Russian culture. Matryoshka is associated in Russia with family and fertility. Matryoshka is used as the symbol for the epithet Mother Russia. Absolutely beautiful, man. Again, you can go look the stuff up on the internet, but I wanted to show you this in my closing. Are we winning? Are we winning? That's Matryoshka. I think the animal is pretty dope. Vola wena. Hey, vola. Can still see that? Boom. Can you see that? Pretty dope. Keep going, Baba. Keep going. How cool is this? And these are hand painted by some of the ladies or some of the people here in Russia. Are we done? No, we are not done. Clips. Hey? Okay, keep going. Boy, so pulse. And there it's done. Look at how dope that is. Wait, I think it's saying something. Hello, lady. Hello, Russian lady. How are you? I'm alright. Spasibo. Are you not done? Jeez, no, there's one more. Oops. Matryoshka. The feminine side of Russia. Mother Russia. I think this is absolutely amazing, man. For people that didn't know, please go look it up. So yeah, that was my gift from Rosatom, which I think is pretty awesome, man. I mean, I think I'm being captured here, Chief. I think they are trying to capture me here, Keda. But am I capturable? No. Let me just close this. End of the video. These are really dope. Imagine if we were to build something similar. I mean, to commemorate. Am I doing the right thing? Yeah. Imagine if we were to build something similar to commemorate African female femininity. Imagine if we were to create something similar to this to celebrate. And look, to give a shout out to Russians as well. I think this would be a nice project. Maybe collaborate with Russians, see if we can make African versions of this and celebrate the women in Africa as well. I'm gonna stop now because I have to head out to the sightseeing. Penuel the Black Pen. Love you guys. I appreciate you guys very much. Sending a shout out from St. Petersburg in Russia. Cheers.